Hello and welcome to the booth. I'm Brian David Marshall. I am joined by Pro Tour Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we are about to watch our third quarterfinal here at Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. Let's get down to the floor, and I'll tell you all about it. Hello and welcome to the third quarterfinal of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar. Brian David Marshall here with Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we are about to watch Kazuyuki Takimura with Abzan. He is, there you get a look at the Japanese Silver Pro. He is mulliganed to 6. He's also pushed his card from his scry. So he's going to be drawing a card, doesn't know what it is. Could be anything. In his Abzan aggro list, why don't you tell us a little bit about his deck, Randy?
Yeah, this is Abzan. Anafenza, I think, is now the most important card in this deck. The best creature. Seems to be outperforming even Siege Rhino nowadays. Like you heard Luis say, no Thoughtseize, no Elspeth. The deck is not the boogeyman that it was in last year's standard, but it's still pretty good, and Anafenza in particular just lines up super well against the metagame. This was a deck that didn't have a great day 1, but it was good in the day 2 metagame.
Okay. His opponent, of course, is Martin Muller of the Dane Blast, the World Magic Cup champion and the owner of a single queen bed last night. He's playing Jeskai Tokens, which is pretty exciting, and curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I like the way Martin, his testing team for this this top 8 included each of the last 2 Pro Tour winners. Martin Dang, Yo Larson. Tell me about this Sunday Magic thing. Yeah, I do like Team Eureka's Jeskai Tokens list. It's a cool list. I'm not sure it's advantaged in this matchup, but definitely a cool deck.
Yeah, Kazuyuki Takimura is going to make the first play of the match. He's got a Warden of the first tree, breaks a wooded foothills, and goes and gets a forest. Lots of fetching is going to be happening. You see another polluted delta there. Goes against an island. It's pretty typical. We're going to get a basic on turns 1 or 2 with our fetch lands right now.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Every hand is its own little puzzle. Depends what you've got to curve into, what do you have 1 drops, do you have 2 drops, how do you want the game to play out? In this case, yeah, Martin was very interested in Dragon Fodder on turn 2, so had to get something that came into play untapped.
2 red goblins, some of the tokens that make up this deck. What are some of the other token makers he's relying on?
Hordling Outburst, and of course Gideon, the ally of Zendikar. This is, in a lot of ways, a Gideon mirror match. And so Martin pretty happy that he got to be on the play here.
Which happened by virtue of him being the higher seed in the
Precisely, yeah, the 4th seed versus the 5 seed. And that's a big deal. Getting to go first with your Gideon is a lot better than being the second one.
There's a Hordling Outburst for the young Dane. Warden the first tree, of course, leveled up on turn 2. And he is attacking for 3. Doesn't put the die on top of it because it's not a counter. He just wants to indicate what level it's at. And there's Anafenza the Foremost. Get a look at her.
Super efficient. 4/4 for 3 mana, and it's even easier to summon her on turn 3.
And he thought maybe I will be putting counters on my Warden of the first tree, so I better get my bookkeeping straight right now.
Now, let's see. Does Martin have? He does have Jeskai Ascendancy. He also has Gideon. He's got all the lands he needs to play either. So that becomes the question. Does he want to get Gideon down, or does he want to get an Ascendancy with nothing really to trigger it with right away? Goes for the Gideon line.
Gideon zeroes it, uses the middle ability to put a 2/2 ally creature token onto the battlefield.
Yeah, he really just wants to draw something to trigger Jeskai Ascendancy with now. Right now he's on Ascendancy at land.
What's the best option for him here as far as spells that he can draw?
I mean, the token makers are all good, right? You know, Dragon Fodder, Fiery Impulse is pretty good here. It's just a one of. You know, Wild Slash. He's not that far away from a treasure cruise either.
You see Takimura looking over the board.
You often see the deck have these, somewhat mana-flooded hands, bunch of lands in hand, but, a couple triggers of Jeskai Ascendancy, and all of a sudden you've turned those lands into spells through the loot ability.
Yeah, Takimura, by the way, holding Siege Rhino. Holding mana for Siege Rhino. Holding Den Protector to get back Siege Rhino should something happen.
Yeah, his Multi 6 has worked out pretty nicely. He kept 4-land Den Protector and Warden of the First Tree, which is, a totally fine keep. But the dream is draw spells. He drew Anafenza Siege Rhino his first 3 draw steps.
So he attacks with both, sending them both in the direction of Gideon. There's a +1/+1 counter that goes on the Warden. This is what we call overkill.
Yeah, this is just chump.
And now, we're going to break a fetch land, and we are going to see a Siege Rhino. Is this our first Siege Rhino of the top 8? I think it is.
Yeah. Both the Abzan decks on this side of the bracket.
And here it comes. Won the first Pro Tour last year, has 2 shots at winning the first Pro Tour this year.
Yeah, it does. This has really not felt like a Siege Rhino dominated Pro Tour, though. It was kind of the
not at
5th
all.
most played archetype. It actually went down in its percent of the field from day 1 to day 2. It did line up pretty well against the metagame at the top of the Swiss, so we saw 2 copies sort of hang out at the end and manage to get into the top 8.
Yeah, it's not like these decks were cruising at the front of the pack through day 2. They kind of just held their ground.
Right. Atarka Red was the deck that had a really bad day 2.
Yeah.
Impala was the only one that survived. That was the most played deck. Even on day 2, that was the most played deck. Jeskai certainly seems to have had the best tournament so far.
There's the Ascendancy.
Yeah, indeed. He drew a Silk Wrap, which does trigger it.
All right, Silk Wrap now gets to draw a card, discard a card. There you get a look at Jeskai Ascendancy. Usually seen in combo decks, but Eric Froelich had a really strong finish towards the end of last season with a Jeskai Tokens deck.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's 50-50 between the combo decks and the token decks.
Gets rid of the Warden. And now all of his creatures.
Because, it's great in a tokens deck, for sure.
Are +1/+1. Decides just to make another ally.
Huh. Siege Rhino holds off the team, I guess.
Martin's down to 9 here, so.
Yeah, there's 9 power worth of attackers, right? Once Anafenza triggers and potentially puts a counter on Siege Rhino.
Takimura sitting on a pair of Den Protectors. A couple of lands. He's got to be a little frightened of not killing Martin on this attack and having his shields down.
Right, but does he really want to play defense and just let Martin set up a better attack later?
So what's the play? Do you come in at Gideon? Do you come in at Martin? Do you sit back?
I'm attacking, for sure.
Okay.
I'm not sitting back.
Right. So step 1 is you put you guys into the red zone and then you figure it out.
Yeah, well, I just don't think playing defense is going to work out. He does have a Den Protector in his hand, but there's nothing to get back. So, losing one of these creatures in combat is almost good in a weird way because it gives him a Den Protector target. And
Except for Anafenza's ability.
a fine point. Yeah, I still think he's got to brawl. He's either going to kill the tokens that he would have been blocking, or he's going to kill more tokens than that.
Plays Windswept Teeth.
Both.
Gets in, sends.
Both.
But it's still a Gideon.
Both creatures at Gideon.
So just do that. Yeah.
I think Martin might be fine with that. He's like, yeah, that's okay. And then here comes a Den Protector. Breaks his fetch land. Goes to 16.
My turn. Yeah.
Martin's looking for a spell. He found a land, it looks like. Does.
That's the Sunken Hollow, right, for Takimura? So he's not representing a Dromoka's command? I mean, I guess he was planning to just tap before the attack anyway, but...
Yeah, he was just planning on getting landed. Yeah, Martin just has to pass the turn. Now this attack. Oh, and there is the Abzan charm.
Wow. Yeah, you can start to see why Martin's teammate was saying this is not a great matchup. I talked to Martin as well earlier today. Did not seem to think he was favored. He felt like, being on the play was good. Being able to play Gideon first was good. But this Abzan deck is kind of a predator for Jeskai Tokens.
Well, they just out. I mean,
Their creatures are so
they
much
just
bigger.
outclass it. Yeah, you don't have that ability to get a little boost on your creatures off of one activation of the Jeskai Ascendancy, send everyone in, and
Right.
whittle down their team in the process. They just have, you're just running into brick walls. And here comes the team. His trigger puts the counter on the Siege Rhino. Martin's looking at 2 lands in his hand.
Yeah, he kind of flooded this game.
Puts 1 in front of Anafenza. Soaks up a point of Siege Rhino trample with 1 point with the token.
Pass. 8 points. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he
exactly
goes
what
to
he
1.
had to soak up to survive. Martin needs to draw Treasure Cruise. That's what needs to
Pretty
happen
good draw.
here. Takimura actually could have gone for the kill with Abzan Charm there with 2+1/+1 counters, but he figures I've probably got the game next turn. I don't know what Martin's holding. He's content with putting Martin at 1.
Martin has a Dragon Fodder.
All right.
That gets him a look at another card.
And it's a land.
The land, and that's going to be
Jeez.
the scoop from Martin Muller.
So many lands.
Kazuyuki Takimura and his Siege Rhino and his Anafenza and his Den Protectors go up 1 game against all those Goblin tokens. Wow. All right, so we've got a brief message, and then when we come back, I talked to both of these players about how they're going to sideboard, so we'll find out a little more after this quick break.
Put your game to the test at a Grand Prix. These open tournaments feature the best players in your region as well as top Magic pros. Upcoming Grand Prix include Beijing, Quebec City, Porto Alegre, Lyon, and Indianapolis. Visit magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix for a complete schedule. Friday Night Magic has expanded to include all formats. Get ready for Commander, Legacy, or even Conspiracy drafts. Check out your local store for details and share your FNM stories by using the hashtag MTGFNM. Visit magic.wizards.com/FNM for more information.
All right, welcome back here. As these players, figure out their sideboard ins and outs here. Well, they gave us a little insight into what they were thinking they were going to do heading into this matchup, and let's see what they had to say. All right, I'm here with Kazuyuki Takimura. What is the plan after game 1 out of the sideboard in this matchup?
このマッチアップはですね、ハンガーバックがまず、シルクラップで、閉じ込められてしまうと、ドローモカコマンドですねが、すごく有効的に活用できないので、まずハンガーバックを抜きます。あとアブザンチャームですね。アブザンチャームが、相手のデッキに対して、追放するモードとか、そういうのが、できなくて、2ドローしか、できない状況なので、それも全部抜きます。で、それらを、抜きまして、まだ使えるカードといいますか、デュレスしかり、ウィングレメイトロック、ソリンソーレンビジター、あとタシグルを、入れて、デッキに不要牌を減らすという形でサイドボーディングしたいと思っています。
Okay. First, he is thinking to remove Hungerback Walker because of the silk wrap. So he wants to be able to use a Dromoka command effectively. So you have to remove the Hungerback. And then for Abzan Charm, he's going to remove. Instead, adding Dress, Wingmate Rock, Tasigar, and Soren.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, good games the rest of the way in the top 8.
ありがとうございます。
All right, Martin, tell me the plan here. What's going on after game 1?
Yeah, I'm going to bring in the Exert Influence, the Fire Impulse, and the Cracking Dunes. And I'm not going to bring in Strokes or Wingmate Rocks.
Okay.
And the reason for the 4 answers and not the more Stroke is actually pretty good. Basically all the problems card actually cost 4 more. But the main problem, he has 5 discard spells. So if I have too many low impact cards, then I have a pretty high chance just getting stuck with those and Wild Slashes, and then I'm just going to lose to whatever. So therefore, I'm also boarding 3 Wild Slash out and 1 Jeskai Tokens. Maybe it seems a little weird to board that out, but it's pretty bad against the Dromoka's command, and it's pretty slow.
Okay, good games the rest of the way in the top 8.
Thanks.
All right, so there you have it. What do you think about those sideboard plans, Randy?
I think they're on different pages because Martin Muller is living in fear of the 5 discard spells. You heard him say how worried he is about the 2 Duresses and then the 3 copies of Transgress the Mind. But Takimura is not bringing in Transgress the Mind. Muller thinks that Transgress the Mind is good against him, but Takimura does not appear to be putting that into his deck.
Yeah, Takimura is actually bringing in more cards that are countered by Disdainful Stroke.
Interesting.
Which Martin's not bringing in.
Pretty interesting.
And what did you think about Takimura's plan?
Takimura's plan. I was listening for the Transgress of Mind because it does seem like the card that's pretty good here, right? It hits Gideon, it hits Ascendancy, it hits Treasure Cruise. I guess I think Martin's right to be afraid of it. It does seem really good against this deck to me. I don't know if Takimura is deliberately baiting and switching to kind of throw Muller off.
I don't know. But
it's also a matchup it's not a super common matchup, right? This Jeskai Tokens.
No, absolutely not. I think Team Eureka was the only team really playing the deck.
It was the only one I noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Luis was saying that CFB tried, couldn't quite make it work. And the deck is very dependent on the enchantment, Jeskai Ascendancy specifically. And it's certainly true that Takimura has a lot of ways to deal with Ascendancy.
And interestingly, Martin was talking about possibly siding one of those out. There we see the Ascendancy.
Yeah, I will say I thought that Takimura's plan of taking out the hangerbacks so that blowing up his Silk Wrap would be good is actually super smart. I mean, a lot of the way from the Ascendancy side, it's almost like if you Silk Rack a hangerback, it's like you've got this built-in defense. The Dromoka's command's not going to hit your Ascendancy because you have this free Silk Wrap you can just let go. Should you be forced to sack an enchantment? So I like that part of his plan a lot.
Takimura draws his cards very slowly. He's like, Ugh. That looks like Martin is kept. See a Dromoka's command and a Siege Rhino and plenty of mana in that opening hand.
Interesting.
But he decides he does not want to keep that.
It's Gideon, Siege Rhino, Wingmate, Dromoka's command. So basically doesn't impact the board until turn 4.
Yeah.
Like the only thing he can do before turn 4 is Dromoka's command. And then, yeah, Gideon Siege Rhino would have been queued up for turn 4. The hand had 3 land. I guess he's just not interested in keeping that slow hand. I like Martin's hand.
So talk a little bit about what we're going to be seeing out of Martin here.
Well, what he needs is a third land, but he's got Dragon Fodder curved into 2 Hordling Outbursts and a Jeskai Ascendancy with a Treasure Cruise to refill.
Oh, the 2 lands he does have are Bloodstained Mire and Polluted Delta, so he starts to get feeding his graveyard.
He just needs a third land by turn 3, and he'll be fine. Now, it's the colored mana could get a little tricky. Obviously, he wants to play Jeskai Ascendancy, but he also wants to play Dragon Fodder on turn 2. So you get this thing where, like, do you fetch basic? But then what if you draw a basic as your third land? You might they might not line up right for Jeskai Ascendancy.
He fetches Prairie Stream, and then maybe on turn 2 fetches a mountain.
Sure, but now a battle land would not come into play untapped on turn
that's fair.
3.
Yeah, that is. Okay. There you see the 6 cards. You see the sideboard Tasker. You see the Den Protector. You see the Anafenza the Foremost, which is.
Yeah, it's not going to be hard for Martin to make his colors work. The question is, can he make his colors work and also hit his curve? That's the puzzle you got to solve with fetch lands and battle lands.
All right, so let's see what he gets on this first turn. Is it going to be a basic? Is it going to be? No, it is Prairie
Yeah, he
Stream.
wants to make sure the colors work. Did Takimura forget to scry?
I think he forgot to scry.
Crazy.
Here's the Bloodstained Mire.
So basic mountain for Dragon Fodder, and now he's got all 3 colors.
He drew another Bloodstained Mire. Is that an updated hand? Yeah. There you see an assortment of all the possible tokens that could appear in this match. Yeah, neither of these players are 20. We got some 18 for Martin Muller and 19 for Takimura. I don't know. Look at the face-up Den Protector. In for 2 comes Martin Muller. But there was no third land.
Oh, yeah,
there.
okay. That was the first Bloodstained Mire, and our board had never been updated. So he's drawn a second Jeskai Ascendancy and a Silk Wrap, none of which are the third land that he needs.
And now he's facing Anafenza the Foremost. Anafenza, he's
Well,
like,
that's an easy answer.
get that out of here with a Silk Wrap. In for 2.
Is Takimura going to win off a pair of mulligans? Multi-6 on the draw, win game 1. Multi-6 on the draw.
Knows his deck, knows what he needs to find.
Okay, there is the third land. It does come into play tapped, though.
Is that too little, too late? For Martin Muller? Attack. Martin's at 16. Needs a critical mass of creatures on the board. Can't really afford to be.
Yeah, but with his hand, blocking seems okay. Like he's got 2 Hordling Outbursts. He's even got an Exert Influence.
Puts 2
I think
tokens,
trading is
in
totally
front of the Den
reasonable.
Protector.
And here he's trading with a Den Protector, and Takimura didn't want to spend the 2 mana to flip it because all there was a fetch land to go get.
Yeah, well, that's also because he's got a Siege Rhino.
Well, yeah.
And he's got a Tassiger.
Right, it's an opportunity to trade with a Den Protector and not give your opponent value. So I like that line from Martin.
Yeah, Martin falls to 9 here. There's
Draws.
a fourth land.
All right. Hordling Outburst.
Something adds up for Takimura.
Well, Den Protector can't be blocked. Siege Rhino has Trample. Does Takimura have another Siege Rhino, maybe?
He definitely has the Tassiger, which may be where he's thinking about playing Tassiger,
Oh,
maybe
sure.
having enough mana to activate it.
Does have another Siege Rhino in his hand. Yeah, I do not know how Martin is supposed to block here, because he can count by 3s as easily as the rest of us can. Going to 3 is not good.
Put 1 token in front of.
I mean, you wish you could put a token in front of Den Protector, but Den Protector doesn't
Oh
work
yeah,
that
yeah.
way.
You can't do that. You just have to chump block.
I mean,
Siege
you
Rhino.
can soak up a point from Siege Rhino, or you can say, well, if he's got another Rhino, I just lose.
I mean, if you know anything about Siege Rhinos, you know they always travel in packs.
He's going to soak up all 3 points from Siege Rhino.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good read. Correctly put Takimura on this second Siege Rhino, but I don't know how he wins from here. He needs a 4th color to exert influence over that Siege Rhino.
Snapping his cards around. Ultimately finds the path to jump his wooded foothills into the graveyard to go get another land.
Can Takimura play both Tassiger and Siege Rhino here? I think he can. I mean, he's seen the deck list. It's not like Muller has a
I think that's
sweeper.
the math he was doing.
Yeah, he can play both the Siege Rhino and the Tassiger. And I have no idea how Muller can get out of that.
Here a little
Uh-huh.
groan escape from Martin. Yeah, okay. There's Tassiger. And we got the sideboarding notes, but I
Just in
don't
time.
think it's going to matter. There's the hand. Kazuyuki Takimura and his Abzan deck are through to the semifinals here against World Magic Cup champion Martin Muller. Wow, that was fast.
Yeah,
And,
hey, that's what happens when one guy just mulligans into
yeah,
oblivion, right?
I was just exactly. We must have been doing this for a while, Randy, because that was pretty much the same exact joke I was going to make. We watched, you see these sometimes. You're like, oh, it's a shame that game was resolved on a mulligan, but it's really fun when the game is won on a mulligan. Both hands there. Takimura said, you know what? This is not a hand I can win with. I get to scry with the new rule. I might not remember to use it one of the times. But
Yeah, think about that game 2 hand. Like, a lot of people would keep Takimura's game 2 hand, and it was exactly the hand Muller wanted to play against, where he would have time to draw his mana.
and I think
Takimura mulliganed to something more aggressive. And
I think
hats
Muller
off to
would have
him.
mauled him.
Yes.
If he
keeps the
kept
first
that.
hand.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna send it back, and then we have one more match. It is Owen Turtenworld versus Paul Dean coming up right after this.
All right, thanks very much to Brian David Marshall and Randy Buehler there in the booth. Yeah, Luis, it turned out that really the key play of the entire match had nothing to do with any of the turns of the game. It was that mulligan 2-6 when a lot of normal players would have looked, I've got land, I've got spells. Why would I ever throw this 7 away?
Yeah, and just because it did not turn out well does not mean that there's anything they could have done differently.
No. So congratulations to Takimura there going through to the semi-finals. Let's take a look at our bracket. 3 of the 4 quarterfinals are done, and we began the morning with Ricky Chin of Canada in his first Pro Tour against Ryoichi Tamada, and it was the Japanese player who advanced. Ryoichi Tamada in a tremendous match. 2 out of 3, Tamada won that one and advanced to the semi-finals. Then we had what looked like the big one on paper, 25 Pro Tour top 8s between them, but we don't play on paper, we play with cards, and Palavida Dom de Rosa really didn't get a glove on John Finkel in this one, and that was just the cards. So we have Finkel Tamada coming this afternoon. Finkel in his 15th Pro Tour top 8 and now 2 matches away from another title. Well, you've just watched Martin Muller up against Kazuyuki Takimura. Muller, the 18-year-old from Denmark, the world seemingly at his feet, but he falls short at the quarterfinal stage. Kazuyuki Takimura will be our 3rd semi-finalist. So 2 from Japan. Will it be 2 Japan, to America, or will it be to Japan, to North America? It's time to turn our attention to our fourth quarterfinal. And we begin with looking at one of the great players in the modern era of the game here in his third Pro Tour Top 8, Owen Turtenwald. Let's take a look at his career so far. Now 27, been around since Pro Tour Valencia, I believe, was his debut back in 2007. He is a Platinum Pro. Over 350 lifetime pro points. By the end of today, he could be over 200,000 in lifetime earnings. Third Pro Tour Top 8, 17 Grand Prix Top 8, 7 of those coming in the 2011 season when he was crowned Player of the Year, the ultimate accolade in the game. And of course, so nearly world champion, just one game short against Seth Manfield a few weeks ago at PAX Prime in Seattle. Let's take a look at his deck. What is he bringing to work with? And it is Dark Jeskai. Now, Luis, not everyone was here earlier on when we saw another Dark Jeskai deck at work. So walk us through step by step, what is Dark Jeskai doing?
Dark Jeskai is really just taking advantage of the best spells in these 4 colors. The 4 colors made possible by the new lands from Battle for Zendikar, of course, like Sunken Hollows. And, you know, Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, Mantis Rider, Tassiger, Crackling Doom, Dig Through Time. These are just all excellent Magic cards. And just like John Finkel, Owen is playing the exact same list. They're playing basically just a bunch of good cards that work well together.
It's very noticeable. 3 Kolaghan's command, 3 Ojutai's command. The commands as a cycle, and we've seen Dromoka's command a bunch already today. These are cards with literally a ton of options.
Yeah, and you don't often see Kolaghan's command and Ojutai's command fighting side by side.
No.
But this is the world we live in now. We've got these mana bases that can support it.
So how complicated is this deck to play? I know so many people will be eager to sort of watch this weekend and go, okay, I want to take a new standard deck into battle at Friday Night Magic. A list like this, is there a lot to learn?
There definitely is, you know, starting from turn 1 when you want to fetch out which land to get. But the good thing is if you can cast Jace on turn 2, you should. If you can cast Mantis Rider on turn 3, you probably should as well. So you have some really, really good spells that you prioritize. But yes, there are a lot of different tricks in this deck, and you'd do better if you learned them.
Well, it is certainly true that Owen Turtenwald is someone who can play tricks to the max. He's a tremendous player, and one of his teammates is waiting on the other side of the studio with Brian David Marshall.
Hey there, Marshall Sutcliffe over here, and I've got Hue Jensen with me. Hue, welcome. Wanted to take a minute to have a chat with you about Owen.
Okay.
You know, Owen, from the outside, he's pretty steely. You get a lot of the same answers from him from those of us that have interviewed him a bunch of times. You know, he kind of gives you the same thing over, you know, I'm going to play my best, I'm going to do what I can do. He took a tough loss at the World Championships. I mean, Game 5, he's this close, and he ended up losing that. What was he like after that?
I'll be honest with you, I was watching at home. You know, Owen and I lived together, for anybody who doesn't know, and I was somewhat worried, like, how hard he was going to take it. He actually took it pretty well. Like, you know, obviously winning the World Championships and being a world champion is a goal of any Magic player, and especially if someone like Owen. But, you know, he came up a little short. I think it was good that, you know, Owen didn't go in there and play bad. He didn't buckle under the pressure. He didn't make some horrific mistakes that cost him the game. He just played. He played good game of Magic, good games of Magic against a very good player, and he lost. And that happens, right? It's not like he had these major regrets, because that stuff can haunt you. Like, you get there, you get so close to reaching your goal, and you do something, you know, boneheaded, and that stuff sticks with you. But I think it was partly because of that, you know, he accepted it, and he was fine with it. You know, obviously he would have preferred to win, and I'm sure he'll be back next year and try to win it again, but he took it pretty well.
Now, on the flip side of that, he finds himself here in the top 8. Now, this is his third Pro Tour top 8. He must be thrilled to be here.
Oh yeah, ecstatic. I mean, you know, in the top 8 with John, that's also kind of cool.
He's his hero, right?
Yeah, right?
Like, you and John are the two people I see him on social media talking about the most. He loves you guys.
Yeah, and we both love him, obviously, and so yeah, you know, he and I made top 8 together in Portland. He made this top 8 with John. It's cool, and I mean, you know, any Magic player who plays at this level for long periods of time, winning the Pro Tour is the thing that they want to do more than anything. So you wake up in the morning, you come, and you know, you have this feeling like today could be the day I do the thing that I've devoted my life to trying to do, and that's a really powerful feeling.
That's incredible stuff.
Hopefully it goes well for him, and you know, I'm certain he'll play his best, and you know, if the cards break for him, Owen's best is better than anyone's best, and I'm confident that'll be good enough.
Now, one other thing I want to ask you about before we go back to the news desk here. Owen's young.
Yep.
He's been playing his whole life. This is his third Pro Tour top 8.
Yeah.
Now, this is usually where you start to hear the first rumblings of the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
For Owen, who's actually going to be eligible coming up in the,
Yep.
in the next season as well. Now, 3 is a little below most people's voting threshold, but he's coming up on that pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, this is 3. We'll see how he does today, right? 3 with the win certainly helps. But also one good thing for Owen, he has a second at Worlds. He has a Player of the Year title. He actually has a very similar resume to Shouta, in my opinion. But one thing that's important to me, and whatever, I've always felt this way, and I think some of my peers feel similarly, when you're sort of regarded as either the best or in the conversation for like the best 2 or 3 players in the world for several years, that matters, right? Like that's somebody who I think deserves credit and deserves to get in the Hall of Fame. You know, obviously I'm a little biased, but I really do believe, like, even if I wasn't friends with Owen, that's something I appreciate. You know, Yuya, I think, also has 3. He might have 4 now. Like, Yuya's somebody I would vote for now, too, just because he's just considered the best for years. Like, if that's not good enough, what is, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you so much, Huey, for taking the time. Let's send it back over to the news desk and Rich Hagan.
What was I thinking? That was, of course, our very own smouldering Marshall Sutcliffe. Anyway, there we are. Let's move on to our final quarterfinalists. 7 we've introduced to you. It's time to tell you all about Paul Dean of Canada. Here he is. And that smile wasn't just for the cameras. Basically, you could have spent an hour in his company last night. That's kind of what he looked like. 18 lifetime pro points, 2,000 in earnings. This is his first Pro Tour top 8. And Ian Duke, here is his deck. It is an Abzan list. There's a question mark. Is it an Abzan aggro list? What's going on here?
Well, we won't worry too much about classification. Paul Dean's deck is fairly typical of these new generation of post-rotation Abzan lists. It's got, you know, all the usual suspects: Hangerback Walker, Siege Rhino, Warden of the First Tree, Gideon, new card from Battle for Zendikar. And the real draw to this deck, post-rotation here, is actually Anafenza the Foremost, a card that we didn't see universally played in Abzan decks pre-rotation. And this card is particularly well positioned against cards like Hangerback Walker, Den Protector, Deathmiss Raptor. So that's a real reason for this deck's success here in this tournament. Rounds things out with great removal spells, Abzan Charm a staple, Dromoka's Command, super flexible, awesome card. And actually 3 copies of Murderous Cut is something that stands out to me about this particular deck list.
So if we see Anafenza early, is that a good sign for Paul?
In general, I think so. I mean, it's not in the deck to beat Dark Jeskai, but it is a 3-mana 4/4, and that's great, and it's got additional upside on it. So, I mean, really, he just wants to curve out, whether it's with Anafenza or Warden of the First Tree, Hangerback Walker, all these other cards, just about curving out and attacking here for him.
Well, yesterday, Owen Turtenwald beat Paul Dean in the last round of Swiss. He thought he'd put Paul Dean out yesterday. Will he finish the job here, or will revenge be a dish best served gold? Let's find out. Here's the last quarterfinal of Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar.